And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We're talking all of the news coming out of Friday. Insignificant news though. The rumours are ended on a couple of people. You can probably guess who they are. Tip in the thumbnail. So let's get into it. So, the first person we are going to talk about is Max Verstappen, who's pretty much come out and said it's time to stop the rumours. He's confirmed he's going to be at Red Bull for 2026. Now, what's significant about that is he didn't mention 2027, 2028, which I think we believe his contract ends. The clause which we spoke about the other day was simply if he's lower than third after the summer break, which he won't be because he's 28 points ahead of a certain George Russell in fourth, then that Red Bull clause closes and he can't leave, although the rumour was Mercedes could hire him for about 100 million euros, dollars, etc. I don't think pounds, 100 million euros of dollars, I imagine. But with everyone saying he's going to Mercedes, he's going to leave Red Bull, etc. and all the, I don't want to say clickbaity stuff, because I guess we're guilty of it as well sometimes, but there was all that talk, wasn't there? And I always held firm that we have felt that Max Verstappen is pretty much staying at Red Bull, and at Red Bull he is staying for 2026. Now, the other rumour then, and this is a rumour, so we've stopped that major rumour, is that George Russell is potentially getting a 2-year deal. Now, whether that's going to be a 1+1 year deal, we do not know. And George has finally come out and admitted he was a little antsy, a little nervous about a certain Verstappen potentially taking his place. But when we look at how well Kimi Antonelli is doing, which is not particularly well, would they really, really want to replace George Russell? I'm surely it may have been Kimi Antonelli come the end of the year had Max Verstappen gone to Mercedes. But this is a moot point now because he's not going to Mercedes. He's staying at Red Bull for 2026. And what's going to be interesting is to see what doors are going to open at the end of 2026 if that Red Bull team is not particularly good. So the other rumour, which is going to be on the kibosh, knocked on the head, is Fred Vasseur. An official statement has been brought out by Ferrari that, yeah, Fred Vasseur's here to stay. Gone are the rumours of Christian Horner slotting into Ferrari. There were rumours earlier this year that Ferrari had approached Christian Horner. Now, what was interesting, when Christian Horner was interviewed about it, he said, no, my heart is with Red Bull. Yes, now, looking back, there's a certain irony there, isn't there, after the British Grand Prix. But the official statement as read, Ferrari NV announced today that Ferrari Spa, these are all different Ferrari groups essentially, but the Ferrari has extended with a multiple, and that's quite important, a multiple year contract, its agreement with Fred Vasseur, who will continue as the team principal for Ferrari HP for the upcoming Formula 1 seasons. And they go on about Fred joining in 2023, bringing with him, obviously, experience. He has a proven ability to develop talent and build competitive teams across all levels of racing. Since then, he has laid a solid foundation for Ferrari. Follow renewing Fred's contract reflects our determination to build upon the foundations laid so far. His ability to lead under pressure, embrace innovation, and pursue performance aligns fully. Now, they don't know, sadly, say how long the contract's for. Now, when we look at the actual announcement for the upcoming Formula 1 seasons, so plural is going to mean 2 or more. 2 brings us into 2026 and 2027. Maybe it's going to be more at the end of the next rule cycle, and this was announced today on the 31st of July. I think Ferrari would have very much folded in a lot of other people's opinions had Fred Vasseur gone. It's a fact that Charles Leclerc wanted Fred Vasseur there, and so did Lewis Hamilton. Is he doing a bad job? No, I don't particularly think he is. Now, you could argue that when Binotto was there, they did build a rocket ship of a 2022 car, but then failed to capitalise on it, and as did Charles Leclerc at times as well, with his mistakes. But in the end, they did get out-developed. And then 23 was, well, Fred Vasseur picking up the slack, perhaps. So it's going to be interesting to see where this journey is going to take Fred. But they're now fully backed behind him, which I think is really good for Ferrari stability going into 2026. This is what I thought was interesting about Lando Norris on Carlos Sainz saying he's he's nice, one of the nicest guys, he's really, really genuine, but sometimes that might be a bad thing. And this is what he said in the interview.
Over at Williams, and he had some lovely things to say about you, not surprisingly. One of the things he said was, I thought it was actually really powerful. He said that you're the most open driver on the grid, but that in the modern world, sometimes people can almost use that against you, like you're really honest, and then people say, oh, now you're too honest.
Yeah. I mean, he's going sure. And that's basically the question. And he is, I think, one of the most open drivers on the grid. And we can thank him for that. Sometimes that takes guts. And being the most open driver, he's sometimes really, really negative against himself. Kind of like a bit like Leclerc, but I'd argue even worse. But let's see what he has to say to the answer.
Yeah.
So how important is it to you to be this open book that you are?
Yeah.
That's tricky.
He's having trouble answering. Oh,
I don't know if it's like about importance. You know, it's not like I'm trying to be like this because I think it's important. I'm just being myself, and I'd rather be myself than try to be something I'm not. I'd rather do what I enjoy in my life and feel like I've just done what I feel like I should have done in my life than try pretend I'm someone else or.
So, for all the criticisms levelled at Lando Norris, Lando no wins, choke Norris, etc., which we are also guilty of here, from that point of view, you can make a very good argument that out of all the Formula 1 drivers, he's arguably one of the most genuine. You could probably say the same about Max Verstappen. He doesn't hide the facts about who he is either, good or bad. But yeah, so Lando Norris is one of the most genuine Formula 1 drivers. If you remember, for example, I always remember when he let Piastri win that Qatar sprint race for payback for Brazil. Would Piastri do that? I don't know.
Or try to pretend like I'm the racing driver that everyone thinks you need to be or should be, or you know, a lot of people like to kind of set these stereotypes, but and some things are probably right and along better lines. For me, I just want to enjoy my time here. I work hard. I do everything I can to win races and try to be the best.
I mean, what more can you say? What more can you say? And that's why we are a fan of Lando. We're also a fan of wet races. And the race has got an interesting article. We've lost enough drivers. An F1 driver's wet weather plea. Let's have a look at this, can we? This is basically the story of the whole week coming out. Spa was the wet races, the delay, etc. And Formula 1 is calling for a disaster. This is from the race. If it starts managing wet races differently from the Belgian Grand Prix, we were saying, yeah, you need to manage wet races differently. No, we're not saying make it dangerous, but let's be fair. There's at least half an hour, 40 minutes where they probably could have gone out and it would have been fine. Now, the choice to delay the start until conditions improved was met obviously with mixed reaction, with Verstappen and Hamilton going let's race. The caution from the race director though had been prompted by a request from drivers to be more conservative after a wet British Grand Prix, and fellow champion Hamilton said they were overreacting. And I tell you what, it's not often that Verstappen and Hamilton agree on something, but I think what I have seen is most of the fans agree, albeit you can turn around and go, yes, but you don't drive an F1 car. No. But then again, you have a 7-time and a 4-time world champion. That's 11 world championships saying it. So, but there was support from drivers elsewhere, and that continued when the drivers were reacting ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix, with Sunday's race carrying a mild risk of rain. I can give an example. The first year I went to Spa 2012, Ocon said, and I was at the back of the grid. It was a wet race. I couldn't see a thing. Basically similar to what happened to Hadjar when he crashed into Kimi. Yeah, that was wet. And it was difficult. I was P25 or something like that. I tried to look right to see if someone was clear and, clear vision ahead and no spray, and I backed off. I was maybe 4th or 5th gear. The moment I pulled to the right, I basically crossed the car that was parallel to the track and spun. And I saw him when I crossed his path. He's talking about if he was on the left, yada, yada, yada. I've been in those situations. It's not any fun, he says. And that's Esteban Ocon. I think what the FIA did was the correct thing. I think, ultimately, waiting, but not waiting that long. We don't want to race in conditions where we're not able to see. I agree. But the spray was, the spray wasn't nearly as bad when you started. And yeah, we could have started earlier. We've lost it, and this is what we've lost enough drivers in those kind of conditions. Yeah, obviously we lost Hubert at the Belgian Grand Prix, and that's not something we want to see. No, we don't want to see. But I think hitting that is the nuclear button. Simply because, yes, I get it, but the minute you are going over 100 mile per hour, even in the safest, single-seater car, you are going to potentially have accidents. Now, F1's last fatality, Jules Bianchi, died from injury sustained at a rain-affected 2014 Japanese Grand Prix in that following year, while 18-year-old Delano Van Hoff was killed in wet conditions at Spa in the Formula Regional in Championship in 2023. So, yes, Jules Bianchi died from injury sustained at a rain-affected under, I do think it was yellow flags because the vehicle was out there and it was a freak accident. The vehicle arguably shouldn't have been there. So comparing Jules Bianchi with a crash at Spa is absolutely ridiculous. I think the race is being a bit silly by adding that in. There needs to be, I mean, there's no context there for Jules Bianchi, is there? He basically, went into a vehicle, like a tractor-esque massive vehicle. Bit different, really, there, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Well, I love the race normally, but I don't know why they're doing that. What? I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, the others, fair enough, absolutely. But no, don't bring Jules Bianchi into that one because that's completely different. And that was a completely different, that's things that really shouldn't have happened. That could have easily been avoided, even more so than, well, you can make an argument that all the crashes can be avoided. The Jules Bianchi one should have been avoided. Ocon's former teammate Gasly also echoed his support. I don't think it's fair to say they've done a bad job. Yeah, they have. They were on the safer side. We'll work on that. Us drivers, we want to drive on the way. We're fine with it. It's always exciting, but you don't want to end up, I get it. You don't want to end up with a situation where you can't see, and it's a fine line. Okay. I am with you there. I'm with you there. I'm absolutely with you there. I just think, and I think a lot of people think, the race could have been started early. We need to get these races started early. It just takes too long to get them going. A 10-minute warning. Why can't you have like a provisional warning, for example, and then carry that on to make it better? But there we go. So, last but not least, Aston Martin are valued at 2.4 billion as a car company sells out of F1. I think this is a rumour. Let's see. The planned sale of a stake of Aston Martin is set to value the operation at well over 2 billion. Aston Martin Lagonda, that's the automotive brand which lends its name to the F1 squad, is poised to sell its interest in the outfit. Interesting. The British marque has announced that it expects to release its minority stake in the F1 team in the third quarter of this year in what is going to be a £110 million transaction. And that was announced by Aston Martin Lagonda in March, that it planned to increase its liquidity by disposing of its shares. That in conjunction with further investments by U-Tree Investments, the Lawrence Stroll-led consortium, poised to up its involvement in the road car business to 33%. Now, according to Bloomberg, the sale of the shares values the team at 2.4 billion. That's ridiculous. However, the report added the deal is yet to be complete. Now, while the automaker is set to step away as a minority holder, it will maintain a commercial relationship through a long-term branding, so it's always going to be... Okay, that's interesting. So, yes, commercially, they're still going to be Aston Martin, which I think you need because it's a big name. Aston Martin, a Honda, I've always thought a bit weird. It means the squad is going to continue to be known as the Aston Martin in Formula One, despite the car company having no interest in the team, though it maintains a common ownership through Lawrence Stroll. And Stroll acquired it. Yeah, well, we know when he acquired it, but then I thought that was quite interesting. But there we go. So, gone are the rumours of Max Verstappen and Fred Vasseur, which I think is a good thing. Finally, we know we can most certainly move on from that. What we can also move on for, if you are not, is be a subscriber, please, if you think we've earned it. But until then, if you are already subscribed, hit that like button. Or just hit the like button if you like the video. And thank you so much for watching. It does make a difference. When I wake up in the morning and I see a couple of views, it's great. It makes me smile. And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much and stay safe.